Good morning. I'm Savannah Sellers.
And I'm Joe Fryer. Right now on Morning News Now, crunch time, a high-stakes summit that could prevent an all-out war in Eastern Europe. President Biden tentatively agreeing to meet with Vladimir Putin over the situation in Ukraine only if Moscow does not invade.
We're doing everything we can, and it's my responsibility to do everything I can to try diplomatically to prevent a war. And so I will leave no stone unturned to do that.
But U.S. officials insist Russia is still ramping up for a potential invasion. We've got team coverage this morning from Washington to Ukraine. A turn of the tide. Is America headed for the endemic phase of COVID? Case counts plummeting. More cities and states are rolling back restrictions that have been in place for nearly 2 years. But is it too soon? Dr. Anthony Fauci weighs in. State officials shift their focus to getting more people vaccinated. Also this morning, end of a generation. A 3G shutdown looms this week for one major telecom carrier. What this means for some of the older tech in your home going beyond the cell phone in your pocket. And day of the deal, a well-deserved long weekend for most of America. Also the time for deals and discounts across the web. We'll give you the lowdown on the best bang for your buck on this President's Day. I've actually gone shopping on President's Day, but I feel like it's patio furniture, right? It's more than that, I think. But
yeah, I hope. I'm actually excited to hear about this deal. I've had my eye on a few things, so maybe they'll be on sale today.
It's part of it. All right, very good. We're going to begin this morning in Ukraine with the world waiting, watching, and bracing for Russian President Vladimir Putin's next move.
Yeah, NBC News has learned that U.S. intelligence shows Russian military officials have been given the green light to invade Ukraine. NBC News chief foreign correspondent Richard Engel is in Ukraine with the latest.
U.S. officials are warning that not only could Russia invade this country and potentially overrun frontline Ukrainian positions like this one with the help of Russian-backed separatists who are less than a mile from this position, but that after an invasion, Russia plans a campaign of repression and has even drawn up lists of Ukrainian activists who might try and organize a resistance or organize anti-Russian demonstrations, and that Russia would use those lists to hunt down and kill or arrest those activists. The Kremlin this morning denies that it has any such lists. It called it a total fabrication. But what is not in dispute is that frontline positions like this one are heating up at a very sensitive time.
These may be the opening shots of a war that could tear up the map of Europe. Russian-backed separatists fighting in a largely ignored conflict for 8 years against the Ukrainian government have dramatically stepped up artillery and mortar attacks, firing on houses seemingly at random in government-held areas. Villagers tell us Ukrainian forces are firing back. Roman Yanovich, a security guard at a fish cannery, says he'd just left his house when an artillery round exploded. It came, he says, from the separatist areas. But over the fields in separatist territory, the mirror is twisted. The separatists say they are facing an unprovoked and merciless assault by the Ukrainian army and gangs of saboteurs. Ukraine denies it's launched an offensive and accuses the separatists of manufacturing a crisis to give Russia an excuse to invade. The separatists, around 2 million, have ordered a mass evacuation for Russia. But some residents of the separatist areas told reporters they didn't know why they'd been brought to Russia, complaining they'd been dumped there without food or a place to stay. Russian media accused the Ukrainian government of carrying out a genocide against Russian speakers in Ukraine. And in yet another show of force, President Vladimir Putin this weekend personally oversaw readiness tests of his country's vast nuclear arsenal. U.S. officials say President Biden said he expects Russia will invade within days because U.S. intelligence indicates President Putin has given his commanders the go-ahead. On the front lines, Ukrainian Lieutenant Colonel Andrei Baklan pointed out separatist positions. Baklan fought for the Soviet Union as a young soldier and hated it. He doesn't want to live under what he calls Putin's dictatorship.
We don't know what's coming. How do you think this ends?
Good always triumphs over evil, he says. But if this starts, many people will die on both sides, and many civilians. But as Churchill showed, in the end, there will be victory.
For now, Ukrainian forces and the separatists seem to be testing each other, firing artillery, responding with artillery fire, but without advancing. It wouldn't take much, however, for an escalation here to spread quickly. Joe, Savannah?
All right, Richard Engel, thank you so much.
While the threat of war still appears to be very real, there is a small sign of hope. President Joe Biden and Russian President Vladimir Putin have agreed in principle to hold a summit meeting to discuss the situation in Ukraine, but only if Russia does not move forward with an invasion of its neighbor. NBC News correspondent Josh Letterman joins us now from Washington. So, Josh, let's start with the latest on that possible summit. The White House has said an invasion could happen within days, but that President Biden is willing to meet with President Putin if there is no invasion. What are the chances this meeting actually happens?
Well, it's certainly not a done deal, Joe. In fact, the White House saying they will not go ahead with any kind of a meeting if Russia invades, and that right now, all signs, according to the U.S., point to Russia moving full speed ahead towards that invasion that we at NBC News are now reporting has already been ordered. That President Biden, when he made those fairly eyebrow-raising comments on Friday night, saying that he believed Putin had decided to invade, that was based on U.S. intelligence showing Russian military units had gotten the order to proceed with their invasion plan, and the U.S. then was able to see Russian units actually taking steps to put that plan into action. But still, the U.S. holding out this dim hope for diplomacy, saying that, of course, it's open to meeting with President Putin if that would actually advance the cause of peace and diplomacy. Take a listen to what Jake Sullivan, the National Security Advisor, said just a few moments ago on the Today Show.
Close the door on diplomacy. We will go the extra mile on diplomacy, but we are also prepared with our allies and partners to respond decisively if Russia attacks.
So there's been no date set for a Biden-Putin summit. There's been no agreement on where it would take place, what it would actually look like. But the next step here is a meeting taking place on Thursday in Europe between Secretary of State Antony Blinken and Russia's top diplomat Sergei Lavrov. That meeting hopefully will pave the way for the leaders to actually come together and avert a war in Europe, Joe.
So, Josh, if Russia has given this order, why has the White House not preemptively taken actions to sanction Russia?
Well, it's a big question that a lot of Republicans in Congress are asking as well. The White House's argument here, Joe, has been that, look, if you say you're going to punish someone if they do something, and then you punish them before they've done it, you've removed your leverage because then they've already faced the consequences. They might as well already go ahead with it anyway. And so they want to use this as kind of a sword of Damocles hanging over the Russians. Secretary Blinken on Meet the Press yesterday explaining exactly why they're holding off on those sanctions. Take a listen.
While the die may be cast, until it actually settles, until the tanks are rolling and the planes are in the air, that we're going to try everything we possibly can to get President Putin to reverse the decision we believe he's made and to dissuade him. Part of that is the prospect of massive sanctions. We're trying to prevent a war. As soon as you trigger the sanctions, of course, any deterrent effect they may have is gone. They get absorbed by President Putin, and he moves on.
That said, there's also disagreement within Europe about when to impose these sanctions, with Ukrainian President Zelensky saying over the weekend at the Munich Security Conference he wants those sanctions imposed now. He says, look, if the U.S. has been warning for weeks now that Russia is on the verge of an invasion, that this has already been decided, why not go ahead and punish them? But some of the European nations, particularly Germany, is very reluctant, like Biden is, to move ahead with those sanctions now. Those sanctions, of course, are also going to have ripple effects for European economies that are concerning to some of our allies.
All right, so Josh, here's what we know won't happen. We know the U.S. won't send troops into Ukraine, but we are still seeing more American forces in the region. So if Putin does invade, what will the immediate American response likely be?
The immediate response will be this massive wave of economic sanctions and other penalties that the U.S. And NATO allies say that they've already coordinated and will just simply turn the light switch on to impose drastic consequences for Russia's economy. I think you will also see in that situation, Joe, the U.S. send, as you alluded to, additional troops into NATO countries, perhaps into Poland or into Romania, some of those countries that are closest to Russia, as they try to make sure that an invasion in Ukraine does not actually bleed over into NATO territory, which the U.S. is treaty-bound to defend.
Josh Letterman with more of our team coverage from Washington. Josh, thank you.
Now, COVID restrictions and protocols that have been in place for nearly 2 years are being rolled back across the country, leaving many wondering if the COVID pandemic is coming to an end. Some of the top health officials in the world are speaking out, saying it may be too soon to drop some of those safety measures. NBC News national correspondent Gabe Gutierrez joins us now from here in New York with the latest. Hey, Gabe, good morning.
Savannah, good morning. The CDC could update its indoor mask guidance as early as this week, but with many state and local governments already getting ahead of that, there is mixed reaction about how to approach this next phase of COVID.
With the Omicron surge fading and COVID hospitalizations plummeting, more states, cities, and businesses are easing pandemic restrictions. But Dr. Anthony Fauci warning it may be too much too soon.
We better be careful because it is a bit risky to doing something prematurely.
Soon, every state except Hawaii will drop their indoor mask mandates. New York State says it won't enforce a booster mandate for healthcare workers because of staffing shortages, while both the governors of California and Utah say they're shifting to an endemic approach to coronavirus. Colorado's governor says the focus should be on vaccinations, not mandates.
There's a lot of Americans of all persuasions that react very negatively, rightfully so, to being told or forced to do something.
Major companies like Carnival Cruise Line are relaxing restrictions too, making masks optional for all passengers starting March 1st. Meanwhile, the U.S. Surgeon General has announced that he and his family tested positive for COVID, including his 4-year-old daughter, who's not yet eligible to be vaccinated. Dr. Murthy tweeting in part, our safety measures reduce risks, but they can't eliminate risks. Nothing can. So what precautions should parents with small children take?
Make sure that as many people around them are vaccinated. And even though there are not great masks that fit young children, trying to have them with any mask, even if it's a fabric or cloth mask, something is better than nothing.
California becoming the first state to formally change to an endemic phase of the pandemic, stockpiling masks and establishing better infrastructure for vaccinations. Other states could soon follow suit, Savannah.
All right, Gabe Gutierrez, thank you so much.
Dr. Regina Bissett-McCain joins us now with more on these COVID headlines. She is the medical director of the McNair Emergency Department. Doctor, always good to have you with us. So as more states drop these mask mandates, we're seeing some officials starting to put more emphasis on vaccines. So how do you get more people vaccinated instead of enforcing mask mandates, especially when it seems like if you haven't gotten the vaccine yet, odds are slim you're probably going to get it?
Well, Joe, you know what? We don't have to have mandates if people just decide to do the right thing. Vaccines don't save people. Vaccinations save people. The CDC has published endless data that shows the differences between the risk of contracting COVID if you're vaccinated versus unvaccinated, and the risk of dying from COVID if you're vaccinated versus unvaccinated. Just in December, you had you were 21 times more likely to die from COVID if you were unvaccinated than vaccinated. That in and of itself should tell people that we should go ahead and get these vaccines.
Doctor, as we are seeing many COVID protocols be dropping, we're also seeing countries opening up their borders, dropping their protocols for international travelers. Australia, a country that had some of the strictest travel rules during this pandemic, just started welcoming tourists back this weekend. We saw some of those reunions in our last hour, but all indications point to people being ready to travel, making plans to do so. How do you feel about that at this point in time, and what can people do to stay safe when they're in a foreign country?
I know that people are ready to travel, Savannah. I know that people are tired of the pandemic, but us deciding that the pandemic is over and us deciding to say that we are in the endemic phase does not make it true. We are still seeing thousands of deaths per day in this country from COVID. And yes, cases are plummeting, but dropping cases does not mean that they can't rise again. We still have to be vigilant because we've seen this time and time in the past during the last 2 years that we've been dealing with COVID. Every time cases fall, we relax our restrictions, and then cases start to rise again. It's like the old Trojan horse trick.
Finally, doctor, it's not just deaths we should be looking at, but really the long-term effects of COVID. A new report from the New York Times is outlining how serious long COVID is for patients. And for example, like what contributes to the exhaustion that some long COVID patients experience. That's one of the more common symptoms. What have we learned about long COVID, and how can people who think they have it approach their doctors to make sure that they're getting the right tests?
You know, I'm so happy that we're talking about this topic because I don't think that we discuss long COVID enough. This has been a phenomenon that's been kind of simmering, honestly, since 2020 when COVID first popped on the scene. There have been some people who have chronic brain fog, chronic shortness of breath, a cough that just won't go away, fatigue that they just can't seem to shake. And doctors are puzzled and have previously been alluding this to maybe something in their mind or something that isn't really true. But new studies are showing that there are physiological reasons that patients are suffering from these symptoms, even after only having a mild case of COVID. What I also found interesting was that in December, the University of Florida published a study that people who were hospitalized with severe COVID, even after surviving their illness, were 233% more likely to die within a year than those who had never had COVID. Wow. And they weren't dying from COVID-related illnesses. So that just tells us there's still a lot about this virus and what it's doing to the body that we just don't know.
And how important it is we continue to talk about long COVID, which probably doesn't get as much attention as it should.
Yeah, absolutely. Especially if you're one of those people dealing with it, you want us to be talking about it.
All right, Dr. Regina Bissett-McCain, as always, thank you so much. Appreciate it. And if you, our viewers, have a question for one of our viewers, one of our doctors, let us know. Asking one of our viewers a question probably won't help you much. Email us at morningnewsnow@nbcuni.com with your questions. Though some of our viewers are very smart, so you never know. You can also let us know if you want to stay anonymous.
All right, now let's get a check on your Morning News Now weather.
And we can ask Michelle Grossman about the weather because that is her expertise. Michelle, good morning.
You are so funny. Yes, we are talking about a messy start to the week for some of us looking at really perfect weather today, especially in the Northeast. But let's start with that next winter storm that we are tracking that will move across the country and bring us some wild weather once again this week. So for today, we're looking at strong wind, heavy snow in the Rockies, the Plains into the upper Midwest, a flood threat for Tennessee Valley, the Ohio Valley also. Could see some severe weather tonight, overnight in the Southern Plains from Dallas to Paducah. Then tomorrow, that area of low pressure moves off to the north and east, so snow in the upper Midwest, rain in the mid-Atlantic. It's going to be a wet day there, although mild in the Northeast once again tomorrow. Then significant flooding possible in northern Kentucky. By Wednesday, we're still talking about this. That cold front moves off the Northeast coastline, but we're looking at that pink. That's an area of ice that could be from Texas to Missouri, so that's something that we're going to watch very closely on Wednesday. But this is a big story, too. We're getting closer to spring, so we're seeing those battles between the really cold air to the north and that warm air to the south. So it's warm versus cold today. Look at that difference where that cold front is. Back behind it, really frigid air. 1 degree in Glendive today. That's 33 degrees below normal. But in the central and southern plains to the east, so above normal, so warm. Look at Oklahoma City today. 75 degrees. That's 18 degrees above normal. And then as we go throughout the next 24 hours, look how far it drops. It drops 32 degrees in Oklahoma City, just 43 tomorrow, 14 degrees below normal, but remaining very warm in the east. We're going to keep that warm weather in the east until Wednesday before we plummet back to February on Thursday. Back to you guys.
Oh, that is confusing.
The swing. Yeah.
A lot going on. Okay. Thanks, Michelle. Good to see you.
Sure.
And coming up, another COVID case for the royal family.
This time it's the Queen herself testing positive. We've got the latest on her condition. Next.
This morning, there are new concerns over Queen Elizabeth's health after she became the latest UK royal to test positive for COVID-19. Her son, Prince Charles, and his wife, Camilla, both tested positive in recent weeks.
Buckingham Palace says the 95-year-old monarch is still expected to carry out light duties this week as she recovers from the virus. NBC News foreign correspondent Kelly Coviella is at the palace for us this morning. Kelly, good morning.
Joe and Savannah, good morning to you. Yeah, the palace saying that she was well enough to work over the weekend, sending a congratulation message to the British Olympic curling team, the women's team, who won gold over the weekend. You know, this is very much a game of managing expectations now with the public, a worried public, a 95-year-old monarch testing positive, and the palace trying to assure people that she's doing okay.
Great deal of material to choose from.
Concerns for the Queen this morning after a positive COVID test on Sunday. Buckingham Palace confirming Queen Elizabeth has mild cold-like symptoms, but adding the 95-year-old monarch will carry on with light duties at Windsor.
Good morning.
Just days ago,
well, as you can see, I can't move.
Queen Elizabeth in good spirits, joking about using a cane. The palace says she wasn't injured, just stiff. But after her son, heir to the throne Prince Charles, tested positive for COVID February 10th, and then his wife Camilla 4 days later on the 14th, there were fears the Queen would be next. Prince Charles had only mild symptoms and was out of isolation last week, handing out awards in London. The 73-year-old now fully vaccinated and boosted, unlike the first time he caught COVID 2 years ago. Even then, he recovered quickly.
Luckily, with relatively mild symptoms.
Palace staff have gone to great lengths to shield the Queen from the virus. She and late husband Prince Philip spending much of the pandemic with a small staff behind Windsor Castle walls. The Queen learning to meet and greet on video calls, canceling Christmases with family, sitting alone at her husband's funeral. By last fall, she was out in public again with a hectic schedule until a surprise one-night hospital stay in October slowed her down.
Oh, yes, it does. Beautifully.
This year, Queen Elizabeth is determined to celebrate her record 70 years on the throne.
Very well preserved, isn't it?
She turns 96 in April, and while she's reportedly fully vaccinated and famously tough, royal doctors will be keeping a close eye.
Often, even people who develop severe symptoms eventually start off mild, so I think any person of that age will need to be monitored fairly carefully. And also, I think, given antivirals.
Buckingham Palace not commenting on the Queen's treatment, only saying she will continue to receive medical attention while she works from home. The palace also says she'll be following COVID government guidelines. That means the Queen will have to self-isolate at Windsor Castle until she tests negative. Joe, Savannah.
All right, Kelly, wishing her the best. Thank you so much.
Thank you. And now let's take a look at what else is making news around the world this morning.
Elliot Ruzzi is back with us from Tehran. Ellie, good morning.
Good morning, Joe. Good morning, Savannah. Boris Johnson is due to scrap all remaining COVID legal restrictions in England in a plan for the country to learn to live with the coronavirus. Number 10 said that the success of the vaccine rollout program had put England in a strong position to consider lifting the remaining legal restrictions. The Prime Minister is expected to update Parliament on his plans this afternoon before holding a news conference to reveal the details to the public this evening. Canadian police said that they had a backup plan if the Freedom Convoy truckers didn't round up their protest peacefully, and after 3 weeks of occupying Ottawa, it's ended with 191 people being arrested and 76 vehicles towed. On Saturday, police used pepper spray and stun grenades to clear protesters in front of Parliament, and by Sunday, the core of the city was secured with fencing as municipality workers began cleaning the mess left behind. And finally, bronzes created as early as the 16th century, looted by British troops from the once mighty kingdom of Benin, now in southwestern Nigeria, have been returned after they were pillaged almost 100 years ago. The return is another milestone in the fight by African countries to recover looted works, mostly from European institutions. A staggering 90% of Africa's cultural heritage is believed to be in Europe. The British Museum alone holds hundreds of thousands of African objects. And those are your headlines, guys. Good to see those objects being returned to where they should be.
Absolutely. Those numbers are quite eye-opening.
Yeah,
all right, Allie.
yeah.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Allie. And coming up, terror in the skies over the weekend. A pair of helicopter crashes happening within hours of each other on opposite sides of the country, both in crowded tourist areas. We'll bring you the latest on those investigations.
Plus, the battle now brewing in South Florida over a proposed bridge project, why some officials in Fort Lauderdale argue it could pose a threat to a historic Black community there. Those stories up next.
A new planet has been found in our neighborhood of the Milky Way galaxy. Astronomers discovered a third planet orbiting Proxima Centauri, which is the closest star to our sun, just 25 trillion miles away from us. It's about a quarter of the size of Earth. But the lead astronomer who found the exoplanet said it's orbiting too close to its star to support life. Its discovery could help scientists find more planets outside our solar system. The planet was discovered by the Very Large Telescope in Chile, which also detected the other planets orbiting the nearby star. There you go. space.
I love how it's found by a very large telescope, not like
exactly.
one in someone's house.
As you just pointed out there, that was in quotes also in the script. Very large telescope. So that's what they call it.
Thank you, Savannah.
Yeah, you got it.
Out of the story of a life-saving donation, a Virginia doctor is donating millions of dollars to raise awareness and find a cure for liver disease. It's killing more and more Americans, especially young people and women. NBC News Now anchor Erin Gilchrist explains how this donation could save lives.
He gave me a gift and a second chance.
Karen Looper and her 34-year-old son, Brenton, have one of the most unique relationships a parent and child can have. After years of watching his mom suffer from liver disease,
At the end of the day, I would be exhausted. Then there were times when something would go wrong and I'd have to go into a hospital for a week. I knew eventually I'd have to have a transplant.
when that day came in 2020, Brenton offered up his liver without hesitation.
Wasn't even a question in my mind that I was going to do this, not only for my mom, but for the rest of our family.
Karen is one of 30 million Americans who have some type of liver disease. It's become a silent crisis and one of the leading medical conditions lowering life expectancy in this country. A reality helping drive a $104 million donation to a liver disease institute at Virginia Commonwealth University in Richmond. Dr. Todd Stravitz and his family's Barbara Brunkhorst Foundation fueling what the university calls the largest announced gift for liver research in U.S. history.
30 years of watching patients and their families suffer unbelievably. The legacy of the gift, I hope, will be that we treat liver diseases before they get to end stage.
Dr. Arun Sanyal will lead the new Institute for Liver Disease.
The liver's primary role is to manage how our body handles nutrition and energy, and then regulates metabolism. When the liver's function fails, the function of many other organs fail, such as the brain, the heart, the kidneys, etc.
Last year, more than 1,100 people on the liver transplant list died waiting for an organ. VCU says the new funding will mean an investment in gene therapy and biotech innovation and allow experts and medical students to develop new diagnostics and treatments with a goal of reducing end-stage liver disease and the need for transplants.
The end game, in my view, is to shift the needle in terms of public health throughout the world, to reduce the burden of liver disease globally.
Liver transplantation is certainly not an optimal treatment. It's a terrible surgery for patients to endure and a terrible surgery for families to watch their loved ones undergo. You know, liver transplantation, I hope someday will really be a procedure of the past.
Stravitz is not only the Institute's major donor, he is also Karen Looper's doctor. We were there for their first meeting since her transplant. She has had some complications since then, but today, smiles and hugs for a 71-year-old woman with a new lease on life, thanks to her baby boy.
He saved my life. How can you not every day wake up and thank the Lord that, hey, he gave me a second chance?
I mean, does that sink in for you? Like your mom just said, you saved her life.
It does. I'm just glad that she can still be around. Doesn't matter what age you are, you consistently are learning from your parents, and this just buys us more time together to have more memories and just keep learning together as well.
Thanks to Erin Gilchrist for that story.
All right, this morning, a proposed major infrastructure project is threatening one of the oldest Black communities in South Florida. It's a 2-mile bridge planned to cross a river in Fort Lauderdale. Transportation officials say it would alleviate traffic congestion in the area, but city officials in Fort Lauderdale say it would do more harm than good. It cuts through a historic Black neighborhood, and city leaders believe putting the bridge there would hamper its redevelopment. NBC News national reporter Dion Hampton has been following this story and joins us now. Good morning. Good to have you with us. So tell us first more about this neighborhood, and then also why Florida's Department of Transportation is considering a bridge in this particular location.
Well, so the state is looking to figure out a way to create more transportation throughout the South Florida region. One of the ways they can do that is to build a bridge that goes from across New River, which is a prominent river in Fort Lauderdale, and get it into downtown Fort Lauderdale. That way they can have more people hop on the trains, they can have more commuters on the trains, they can help alleviate traffic in other roads such as that. The problem is if you build this this 2-mile bridge is going to cut through a Black historic neighborhood called Sistrunk. It's Fort Lauderdale's first all-Black neighborhood, and it's been there for more than 100 years. It was there more before the city was even founded. And so a lot of people are saying, well, this is going to hurt the redevelopment efforts that the city is trying to do to bring up and spruce up that area, because no developer and then also no residents want to either live, one, under a bridge, or also they don't want to be and live near the train noise.
Yeah, so let's talk more about what people are saying that are not happy about this. How do business owners feel? How do people who live in this neighborhood feel about this project? And what do they think is going to happen if the state does decide to move forward with this bridge?
Well, the homeowners association out there, they said that they want to find out more information about what's going on. Ultimately, this is a county decision. The mayor of Fort Lauderdale is saying that he doesn't want this. It's a state project, but because of the way that the money has to be allocated, it's up to the county to kind of figure out if they're yay or nay on this. The mayor wants a tunnel. The tunnel is twice as much as what the bridge would cost. So the county, I think, is leaning towards more of a bridge, but the homeowners association wants to find out more information because they feel like they've been left out the loop as far as gathering more information to be able to make a concise decision. Business owners in the Sistrunk community, however, say that they really don't want it. And if they do want some type of infrastructure plan, they would prefer to have a tunnel that way, or a train, that way that the train could come through the tunnel, let people who don't have cars or access to regular transportation off, and allow them to shop in that neighborhood, which will also go with the city's efforts to help revitalize it.
Let's put some context around this and broaden out a little bit, because this is not the first time that NBC News has reported on transportation projects that have divided or damaged minority communities in the U.S. What has the result of these types of projects been in the past in other communities?
Yeah, so NBC News did an entire investigation last year about how infrastructure projects, mainly highways, have decimated over the years, over decades, have decimated Black neighborhoods. This is something that President Joe Biden has talked about. This is something that federal transportation, Pete Buttigieg, says that he's, as part of the infrastructure bill, they're trying to actually stop things like this from happening. But here we are back in Fort Lauderdale, and it's possibly happening again. But this is something that President Biden, these are the type of projects he don't want to occur.
All right, Dion, thank you so much for joining us and for your reporting here.
Thank you so much.
Coming up, it's President's Day, which means a day off of work for many, and of course, a load of shopping deals.
Yeah, we've got the best bang for your buck on this President's Day. That is up next.
Welcome back. It's President's Day, which usually means holiday sales for the savvy shoppers out there.
Say that a bunch of times. Savvy shoppers. This year's holiday is marked, of course, though, by the ongoing supply chain issues and inflation hitting a wide range of industries. So are there still going to be good deals to take advantage of?
Let's bring in smart shopping expert Trey Bodge to walk us through some of the best deals out there. Trey, good to have you with us. So what are the best deals to take advantage of today?
So the categories that I would focus on this morning or all day would be in the home category. So things like appliances, mattresses, and then home decor items as well. That's where I'm seeing the most deal activity.
So patio furniture, as,
there we go.
As Joe had predicted earlier.
What I always think of when I think of a President's Day sale. Your patio furniture.
Let's talk about some of those issues I mentioned at the top. Inflation, supply chain issues, impacting the prices really of just about everything. Is it also going to impact the amount of deals we would see today?
Yes, I'm expecting so. So I am seeing a lot of deals, but I'm seeing fewer deals. And this is, of course, not surprising because we are still struggling with lingering supply chain issues that we've been dealing with throughout the pandemic. And we had a very robust holiday shopping season. And so a lot of retailers are kind of cleaned out, and they're also waiting for some merchandise to still come back in. So savvy shoppers can get out there and save today, but they may want to be a little bit careful about pricing. Of course, we're seeing a 7% rise in inflation right now, so prices are going to be a little bit higher. We'll see those deals, but you may need to look at deal sites and see if you can save a little bit more, look for cash back offers just to get that price down a bit today.
Yeah, I want to ask you more about that. I mean, given this different landscape for retailers and shoppers, what are some of the best ways to make sure you are getting the best deal on what you want? If you're looking at something and wondering, well, is this a deal? I'm not so sure. How do you figure that out?
That's a great question. So, of course, a lot of retailers are offering deals today, but that doesn't necessarily mean that that's the best deal. So what I would do is I would look at deal sites. For instance, Coupon Follow, which is a site that I work with, they have exclusive deals. For instance, at Pier 1, 20% off, and that's with the code Coupon20. So that is a deal you're only going to find on that deal site. They also have deals at World Market and also Home Depot and Macy's. And so as a savvy shopper, what I would do is look at the retailers, see what they're offering, then go to my favorite deal site, look for deals there and compare and contrast. I would also use a tool like Google Shopping, for instance, which is great for comparing prices. So you can enter the name of an item and see the prices all across the internet and in store as well. And then you know that you're getting the best price when you make that choice.
I did not know about that tool, and that sounds dangerous.
Now you
to
do.
me.
See?
Sounds like I'm going to do the thing where I'm like, well, I'm making money since it's on sale.
All right, Trey Bodge, thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Thank you. All right, now investigations are underway into two separate helicopter crashes that took place over the weekend. They happened just hours apart from each other, and both were near crowded areas, one in Miami, the other outside of Los Angeles. NBC News national correspondent Miguel Almaguer has the latest.
Today, the NTSB is investigating two helicopter crashes that took place on opposite sides of the coast, just a few hours from one another.
This morning, officials are investigating this terrifying scene.
Airplane crash, Newport Boulevard at West Coast Highway.
Surveillance video capturing this Huntington Beach police helicopter crashing into a crowded harbor on Saturday. Bystanders on boats rushing in to rescue the two police officers on board.
We're maybe 50 feet away where they're trying to rescue the person inside the copter right now. It's insane.
Tragically, 44-year-old Officer Nicholas Vela, a 14-year veteran of the force, died from his injuries. The other officer was released from the hospital. Police say they were providing air support for a domestic disturbance call when 32 minutes into flight, something went wrong. Witnesses reporting the chopper suddenly going into a spiral.
It's like flipping over and spinning, and then at that point you just see it kind of going down.
We're responding to a helicopter down off of South Beach.
Just hours earlier, off the packed shore of Miami, another chopper slamming into the ocean, just feet from swimmers.
The helicopter just came down and then smacked and hit the water. I'm just glad nobody got hit by the helicopter or nothing.
Bystanders helping rescue officials save the pilot, as well as his wife and another woman trapped inside.
The crowd held the helicopter up out of the water enough where the two females were able to breathe. If not, they probably would have drowned.
In both crashes, experts say it was likely a combination of pilot skill and plain luck that there weren't more casualties.
Both of these accidents could have been much more serious than they were if they would have landed or crashed onto the crowded beach or on top of homes or in businesses.
On both coasts, the NTSB has just begun their investigation. They say a full report into that investigation will likely be weeks, if not months away. Back to you.
Wow, some frightening images. Miguel Almaguer, thank you.
A heated Big Ten rivalry matchup over the weekend turned into a brawl. It happened in the handshake line at the end of yesterday's Michigan-Wisconsin men's basketball game in Madison. NBC News youth and internet culture reporter Callan Rosenblatt joins us now with more on the fallout. Callan, good morning. So first, just explain to us what exactly happened at the end of the game yesterday.
Yeah, so it started like any other college game. Michigan was down to Wisconsin, and in the last 15 seconds of the game, Wisconsin called a timeout. Now, Wisconsin was up by 15 points. So Juwan Howard, the head coach of Michigan, felt that that was a little bit of an insult to injury when the team was already down. Now, during the handshake, the two coaches exchanged words. And when they did this, all chaos broke loose. There were players, coaching staff, I believe even police officers trying to break up the coaches that were getting into this scuffle. And here is what Juwan Howard said led to this confrontation.
I didn't like the timeout being called, and I'll be totally honest with you. I thought it was, not necessary at that moment, especially being a large lead. Well, basically, I addressed with the head coach that I will remember that because of that timeout, and for someone to touch me And I think that was very uncalled for him to touch me as we were verbalizing and communicating with one another. So that's what ended up happening, and that's what escalated it.
So after this exchange, this very heated exchange, Greg Gard basically said, hey, wait a minute, like, you know, what do you mean you won't forget this or you'll remember this? And that's what he says happened on his side, that he wasn't trying to grab Juwan Howard, that he kind of wanted to take a moment. This is how he explained his side of the exchange.
And he came up to me and pulled his max down and said, I'll remember that. And he started pointing it at me and tapped me in the chest. And I said, hold on. Let me explain to you why I took the time out. But that's where it started, that he said, I'll remember that, I'll remember that. And I said, hey, let me tell you why I did what I did. And he didn't want any part of it.
Now, we know that this incident is being investigated. The Big Ten Conference said that they will look into this and see if any disciplinary action is required. We also know that the Michigan athletic director has reached out to officials at Wisconsin to offer their apologies. As of right now, there's no disciplinary action that has been announced, but it seems like it is more than likely coming either today or sometime tomorrow.
So Callan, if there is disciplinary action, would it come from Michigan? Would it come from the Big Ten? Could it come from both?
It seems like right now it could come from both. Michigan said that it was consulting with the Big Ten Conference to see what disciplinary action should be taken. So it seems like it could come from both. It could come from one. Again, we're going to have to wait and see, you know, what the disciplinary action is. Is it suspension for the rest of the season? Is it a few games? There's a lot up in the air right now that we just don't know. So it is kind of a waiting game at this moment.
Definitely folks talking about that one this morning. Callan, thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Of course.
And coming up, a major change is coming to America's tech landscape this week. What you need to know about AT&T's 3G shutdown and how it could affect more than just your cell phone.
Plus, if you're anxious about returning to the office with COVID cases now on the decline, we've got some tips to help it make you feel maybe a little more normal. That's next.
We're back with more on that broadband transition that will impact us all, the official switch to 5G. The wireless networks have been slowly rolling out 5G for years, and starting this week, AT&T says it's shutting down its older 3G networks for good.
But some worry that the move will put the health and safety of millions of 3G users in jeopardy. NBC News correspondent Gotti Schwartz has more.
Hey, good morning, everyone. 5G stands for fifth generation of broadband, and it promises much faster connections and downloading for everyone. And major carriers have been rolling out 5G since 2019, but to get it fully turned on, they've got to turn off their older 3G networks, and that's what's happening as soon as Tuesday. But critics want this switch delayed because they're worried it could put millions of lives in danger.
It surfs the web and downloads data twice as fast.
Remember when 3G was a huge breakthrough over a decade ago, offering unthought of advances like video conferencing and mobile maps? Well, now major carriers are shutting down their 3G networks to make way for much faster 5G. AT&T is the first, phasing out its 3G on Tuesday. T-Mobile will do it by the end of March, and Verizon by the end of the year.
5G is compelling relative to 3G for three reasons. One, it's more power efficient, which means it'll support more devices and more subscribers on a network. Two, it's more secure. And third, performance.
Because both use the same networks, fully enabling 5G means carriers must disable 3G. But many older devices and alarm systems still use 3G.
If someone has a 3G medical alert system, help won't come. If they have a fire alarm system in their home with a 3G device and a smoke detector goes off, no one will know. If they have a 3G cell phone, they try and make a phone call, won't be able to.
Carriers say they've been transitioning customers off 3G for years. AT&T told us less than 1% of its mobile traffic runs on 3G. But 2 million home and personal emergency response systems still use 3G, mostly through AT&T networks, and 80% of those customers are seniors. Now the alarm industry and many others are petitioning the FCC to delay AT&T's 3G shutdown until the end of the year, giving companies more time to upgrade customers to 4 and 5G. In the meantime, the FCC says it has safeguards in place to ensure devices using 3G still work through the transition.
Okay, so experts say any device over 3 years old using wireless technology, a phone, your car, a home alarm, or a medical alert system, might still be using 3G, and upgrading it to 4 or 5G might mean you got to replace the device entirely, like with a phone, or you might need a company tech to come out and install new parts. So the best way to know if you're using 3G still is really just to call the manufacturer's customer service number and ask. Guys, back to you.
Fascinating stuff there, and news we can use. Thanks, Scotty.
In our ongoing series, The Future of Work, many employers and employees are trying to figure out what exactly it means to return to work and when to come back.
Yeah, I mean, return dates have shifted with the emergence of new COVID variants, and all that uncertainty can cause a lot of anxiety. NBC News senior investigative and consumer correspondent Vicki Nguyen has more.
Hello. Yeah, some of us are preparing to return to the office in some capacity, but what exactly does that mean? Working remotely, going in daily, or a mix of the two? Workplace experts say the answer is constantly evolving. Some advice for how to reduce your anxiety and focus on what you can control when it comes to your job.
Say I am anxious returning to the office.
The choice were up to me, I would 100% be 100% remote.
I really enjoy being back among my coworkers.
It's hard to truly disconnect.
People across the country grappling with a big question. What will the return to work look like?
I feel like I'm starting a new job all over again.
A survey found 83% of respondents view a hybrid workplace as optimal.
Just flip the switch and go right back to the office as if the last year and a half hasn't happened. It's a little jarring.
Job postings on LinkedIn offering remote work have skyrocketed 357%.
There is no one-size-fits-all solution.
Lindsay Pollock is a career expert and author of Recalculating: Navigate Your Career Through the Changing World of Work.
There's going to be a lot of change and evolution in the next year. So I know people want an answer and a definitive weekday plan, but I think it's going to take a long time for this to work out.
So we have to get comfortable with that.
I hate uncertainty just like everybody, but I think that's the name of the game.
So how can you decide what style of working is right for you?
I think there are 4 key factors you want to consider. First is your actual job function and how easy or difficult is it to do your actual job when working remotely. Second is your health and well-being. Third is your personality. Are you more introverted or extroverted? And fourth is, where are you in your career trajectory? If you've just started out, you might make a different decision based on the network that you build by being in the office.
I'm anxious because I don't think I remember how to be in an office anymore.
No matter what your work situation is, feeling anxious is normal.
Anxiety often is about fear and uncertainty.
Dr. Sue Varma is a board-certified psychiatrist who says she's seeing a lot of patients worried about returning to work.
It's manifesting in a variety of ways. Some people are saying that they're having difficulty falling asleep. Some are waking up in the middle of the night and just feeling panic.
What's the difference between worry and concern and actual anxiety?
Worry and concern are fleeting thoughts that a person has that are very concrete about what is my day going to be like? What can I expect? But it doesn't interfere in your day-to-day life. Anxiety, on the other hand, is rumination, and it can be debilitating.
Lack of sleep, constant headaches, stomach pains, heart palpitations, or sweaty palms, signs you may be suffering from anxiety. To reduce anxiety, Dr. Varma suggests make a list of what you need to do to return to work. Rehearse the day. Visualize your interactions. This can help you manage your thoughts.
This is going to have to be something that we ease into.
Despite some anxiety, there are those who can't wait to be with other people again.
The only people that I've really seen day to day are my dog and my boyfriend. So just excited to switch that up a little bit.
Easing back into work with an open mind and skills to cope with life's one constant: change. Our career expert says if you love your current situation working from home or maybe a hybrid, talk to your boss about it. But be sure to frame the talks about how your schedule would be helpful to the company. Are you more productive? How are you bringing value to the business? Then it might be an easier decision for your employer to give you what you want. And also keep in mind that when it comes to masks or vaccines, your company can tell you what it expects, and it's also up to local laws as well. Testing could also play a big part in your return to work. Back to you.
All of that is true. Thank you, Vicki.
Really good advice there, yeah.
That does it for this hour Morning News Now.
But the news, of course, continues right now.
Thanks for watching our YouTube channel. Follow today's top stories and breaking news by downloading the NBC News app.